Do you remember a while ago, February? Gosh, that was so long ago. 2 whole weeks. Maybe even 1 week. 2 whole weeks, nearly. LBC came out with doctors who change gender have wrongdoing erased from public record, GMC admits. Doctors who change gender are having their medical records scrubbed, the General Medical Council has admitted. So the General Medical Council is like the body in the UK which regulates doctors. Following the discovery, Health Secretary Wes Streeting was seen to condemn the wiping of doctors' records, labelling the practice as extremely concerning. And then, obviously, they need to talk about gender-critical activist and bully Sandy Peggy, and the case that they've got harassing Dr. Beth Upton at the moment for just getting changed at work. And apparently there was a whistleblower. Anyway, I think this is one of these things. Like, when I first read this, I was like, well, firstly, I bet this isn't true. But were it true, this would be bad. But even if it is true, and it is obviously bad, people like Wes Streeting and the British right-wing press are going to make a massive deal out of this when actually it's a fairly easy, uncontroversial change, but they're going to try and use it to remove trans people's rights further. For example, instantly linking it to this lady who is trying to bully her colleague out of doing her job, which is actually nothing to do with this at all. And it's just going to be used to generally stir anti-trans sentiment even further in the UK. So my initial suspicion was completely correct. So the GMC wrote a letter, which we can see here. It says, "Dear Secretary of State, we saw your comments in the media today about your expectations of the GMC to provide patient transparency while maintaining the Protections Equality Act. The report suggests that we treat doctors who have changed gender differently in respect of their fitness to practice history, leaving patients at risk. I would like to reassure you that this is not the case. It's a complex area, blah, blah, blah. When a doctor transitions, they receive a new GMC number," which is what the argument that LBC here was making. They were saying that the GMC, which regulates doctors, has admitted that doctors who are changing gender are handed a brand new registration number, meaning past histories of incidents, concerns, or wrongdoing are no longer visible on their new record. So the letter here says they do receive a new number, but their fitness to practice history and any risk they may still present to the public attaches to an individual and remains the same whether or not they're a gender identity change. I mean, okay, obviously, right? Like, when you get a new number and a new name and a new gender, they don't wipe your entire employment record. Like, what sense would that make? Like, maybe there is a company out there where that has happened, and that is clearly dumb. But, like, that would be terrible. I mean, that would be bad for trans people too, because you'd want all of your record to still be there, but also it'd be bad for trans patients, because, like, it would be terrible. I feel like this is just a common sense, obvious issue that if you've had complaints against you as a doctor and you transition, you should not, that should still follow you around just like it does anyone else. But that is the case. And they've just totally made this up. Like, it's just a total nonsense, fake story that, of course, Wes Streeting had to comment on. And are they going to correct, like, are LBC going to say, oh, actually, turns out the thing we reported on 2 weeks ago was wrong. Apologies, we got it wrong. The anti-trans sentiment stirred from this, we can back off. Is Wes Streeting going to say, oh, actually, turns out that it's not extremely concerning and we don't need to do anything about it because the whole story is wrong? No, of course they're not going to do that. LBC isn't going to publish a new article. The Telegraph isn't going to publish a new article. They're not going to issue an apology. Wes Streeting isn't going to comment on it at all. And it's just now going to be one of those things where you're talking to a gender critical person and they'll say, when you transition at work, if you're an abuser, then you get a new whatever. And that's just going to be a fact to them. And unless you know specifically what they're talking about, it's going to be hard to argue against. And like so much of the anti-trans stuff is this. One of the newspapers just makes something up, doesn't bother fact-checking. Like, why didn't they reach out to the GMC, like, first? Before they published this article? Doesn't matter. They just published something that's just completely false. And then the politicians who hate trans people comment on it. And then there's a news story about them commenting on it. Then it turns out it was all false. And then that's it. It's just so frustrating. Why is the British media so shit and so keen to write terrible things about trans people and the laws around us, and so unwilling to do any basic journalism at all, or to like correct themselves when they're wrong?